This morning's scripture reading is Job 23, found on page 432, as we overhear Job trying to make sense of his distress. So that's page 432, Job chapter 23. Then Job answered and said, "Today also my complaint is bitter, my hand is heavy on account of my groaning. Oh, that I knew where I might find him, that I might come even to his seat. I would lay my case before him and fill my mouth with arguments. I would know what he would answer me and understand what he would say to me. Would he contend with me in the greatness of his power? No, he would pay attention to me. An upright man could argue with him, and I would be acquitted forever by my judge. Behold, I go forward, but he is not there, and backward, but I do not perceive him. On the left hand, when he is working, I do not behold him. He turns to the right hand, but I do not see him. But he knows the way that I take. When he has tried me, I shall come out as gold. My foot has held fast to his steps. I have kept his way and have not turned aside. I have not departed from the commandments of his lips. I have treasured the words of his mouth more than my portion of food. But he is unchangeable. Who can turn him back? What he desires, that he does. For he will complete what he has appointed for me, and many such things are in his mind. Therefore, I am terrified at his presence. When I consider, I am in dread of him. God has made my heart faint. The Almighty has terrified me. Yet I am not silenced because of the darkness, nor because thick darkness covers my face."
Good morning. Job chapter 23, if you're still there. If you came this morning expecting and looking forward to hearing Pastor speak from Ephesians, I'm really sorry to disappoint you. I think that is a disappointment. But I'm grateful to be here. I really am. I'm going to apologize right up front that I'm not as good as Pastor, as in the fact that I've got 5 points. Somehow he always keeps it to 3, but I'm not able to do that this morning. And, I got to tell you that I really am thankful for this church. I work for a camp, and I get the privilege of traveling around, speaking at different churches, filling pulpits across New England. And sometimes me and Joe and Rand, we just kind of disappear. We're in and out, and yet no one ever accuses us of skipping church here. We come back to our family, and you guys just receive us in. So grateful for our home church, and thankful for our pastor. I'm really thankful to work at camp. This is I don't know if I should say this publicly, this is my 37th summer. I started when I was 4. These kids you saw up here, they're not kids, they're young adults, and they're all dressed up. I hardly recognize them when they're all dressed up. You should see them running around the campsite, especially Friday evening when they're getting ready for final scoring to find out who won, the red or the blue team. They look rather interesting. But these young people have just dedicated their lives to service. They've sweat, they have cried. They have worked so hard behind the scenes, and I just really appreciate them. And now they give up their time to come and minister here today. I really just love that crowd that was standing behind me, and I'm still just overawed that I get to be a part of camp, and they haven't kicked me out yet, so I'm really grateful for that. And I really love Job 23. This has been a friend to me over the years, and I hope that it'll be an encouragement to you wherever you find yourself today. I had the privilege of working on a rescue team in North Carolina, and as such, I got to be a part of a couple search and rescues. Those moments where you can't find somebody, and somebody is missing them, and it is our job to go out and try to find them. And some of those searches took us all night, and some of them took us 15 minutes. But there was some common themes when you go to interview the parents of a missing child. There's oftentimes frustration, like, why would my son do this? Well, We heard a testimony earlier about a junior high boy. You don't explain things that happen in junior high boys' minds. They just do those things. But parents get frustrated, like, why would my child do this? Where are they? Sometimes there's a desperation, and you can see parents sometimes just, understandably, melting down, like, I'm so desperate to find my child, please help me find my child. And oftentimes you run into hopelessness. They've been gone all night, and you can see the sadness sink in, and there's this hopelessness. And then there are times when you see an intuitive response, kind of a stop and think about it response. And then you start to think, well, if I know this child, they would want to go do this, and then they would want to go do that, and that would lead, and oftentimes those little clues were the things that helped us find the missing person. Frustration didn't help, desperation didn't help, hopelessness didn't help, but an intuitive response to stop and think and look at the facts and what you know about that person would oftentimes be the very thing that would help us find the missing person. Well, it's obviously one thing when you can't find somebody, you can't find a person, but what is it like when you can't find God? Have you ever felt like that? Like God, I don't know where you are. Have you ever wondered, God, if I could just have 15 minutes, could I just have 15 minutes with you? I've got some questions for you. If you've ever felt that way, then you understand Job. Here's Job. Many of you know the story. He's had a lot going on. God blessed him, and then God allowed Satan to take it all away from him. Just gone. Everything he owned, his children. I've lost one child, and I can't imagine losing 11. That just, I can't even begin to process that. And here's Job. He just doesn't understand. And then 3 friends show up, and they sit silent for 7 days. Because here is Job. He's miserable. He's got boils all over him. He's in pain. He's lost everything. And they just sit there. And you know, those 3 friends did great until they started talking. And then they started talking, and then they started accusing Job. You must have hidden sin. Nobody gets punished like this. I mean, nobody goes through this unless there's some kind of secret sin. Come on, Job, fess up. And all the way through this, Job is saying, no, I trust my God. I don't understand God. In fact, he complains about God. In fact, he questions God. Well, we know in the end, God does teach Job a few lessons. In fact, he uses a 4th friend to help Job understand that his response to God was very messed up. In the end, God restores him. God taught him some lessons. God made him a new man in the process. But we catch him right here in the middle in chapter 23. He's in the middle of answering these friends who are accusing him of sin. He's frustrated. He's lost. And we see this in his voice. Verse 1, Job answered and said, today my complaint, it's bitter. My hand is heavy on account of my groaning. Oh, that I knew where I might find him, that I might come even to his seat. If I could just get in my chariot and go to God's throne and get a 15-minute reservation with God. Come on, God, could I just meet with you? Could I just come have a discussion with you? Have you ever felt that way? I'm going to admit to you that I have. Sometimes in times of crisis, I've felt this way. And then sometimes just in the day-to-day grind, sometimes it's like God disappears. And I'm like, what's going on? I feel distant from you, God. Where did you go? And so I've found different times in my life where I've come to this conclusion. I just wish I could go talk to God, have a one-on-one with God for a few minutes. But he goes on and he says here, I would lay my case before him. I would fill my mouth with arguments. I would know what he would answer me, and I would understand what he would say to me. Would he contend with me in the greatness of his power? No, he would pay attention to me. So this is point number 1. We see Job's frustration. If I could just go to God, And if I could have a conversation with him, it'd be like a courtroom scene. I would lay out my case, and I would make reasoned arguments to God, saying, here's what's going on, God. I've been faultless here. I have followed you. I've done my best. And all of a sudden, you're doing all this stuff to me. Job says, I just wished I could come in and, like an attorney, just lay it out there. Would God contend with me? No, at least I could get God to pay attention to me, because I feel like I've lost his attention, but his frustration's not done. Verse 7 there, an upright man could argue with him. I just want to be acquitted forever by my judge. But, behold, I go forward. He's not there. Backward, but I don't perceive him. On the left hand where he's working, I don't behold him. He turns to the right hand, but I don't see him. I am looking all over for God. I look forward, I look backwards, I look left, right. I cannot find God. Job was a frustrated man. But don't miss point number 2, Job's reality. God, I don't know where you are, verse 10, but he knows the way that I take. I love this. This is Job's faith coming out in the midst of his trial. I cannot find God, but God knows exactly where I am. He knows. The word knows is in that Hebrew perfect tense. It's a little different than the English perfect, but it's the idea of being completed. God completely knows. And here's Job. He can't find God, but he knew that God knew where he was. And sometimes we get this idea that, yeah, sure, God knows where I am. You get this concept, God's up in heaven. You're looking down. Yep, I know where Steve is. I see him down there. I see him having a hard time. And we feel this distance. Yeah, I know you know where I am, God. You're 1,000 miles away, but you know where I am. But that's not what Job is saying. Because of the next phrase, he knows the way that I take. Job used these words very much on purpose. This has the idea of God knows the course of life that I'm on. He knows the road that I'm on. God knows exactly what's happening to me. And he knows the way that I take. And those words are very, very interesting study because they have the idea of inclusiveness, fellowship, companionship. They could be translated this way: he knows the way with me. See, Job understood somehow that God was not up in heaven just kind of looking down and saying, yeah, I see Job over there. Hope you're doing all right down there, Job. No, Job understood that God was with him in companionship. He understood that God was on the journey right with him. I don't know about you, that brings me a truckload of hope and encouragement. You might feel this way today. I'm so frustrated, I can't find God. He seems like he's a million miles away. The truth of the matter is this: God knows exactly where you are. He has not left you. In fact, he makes some promises to you. Psalm 139, where can I go from the presence of the Lord? The rhetorical question the psalmist answers, I can't go anywhere. If I go up to heaven, he's there. If I go down to hell, he's there. I can't escape his presence. I love what he says in Jeremiah 23, verses 23 and 24. Am I a God at hand, saith the Lord, and not a God afar off? Can any hide himself in a secret place that I shall not see him? Do not I fill heaven and earth? I love that. God fills heaven and earth. You know what that means? God is already where you are going. He's right there. And how can we get away from Hebrews 13:5? I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. You might feel like God has abandoned you. You might feel like he's a million miles away. But he's not. He knows the way that you take. But Job wasn't done there. Not only did he know, his reality was God knows, but the second thing that he knew was that God was up to something. And God was up to something good. He knows the way that I take, and when he has tried me, that complete tense, and when he has tried me, I shall come out as gold. Gold, something very, very valuable. See, I don't know where God is all the time. I don't know what he's up to. But this one thing I know, this one thing Job knew, God was up to something, and God was up to something good. I have a hard time with that sometimes. God, I don't know what you're doing. Why are you allowing this stuff in my life? I thought you loved me. God's up to something good because we can be confident, like Paul said in Philippians 1, being confident of this very thing, that he, which began a good work in you, he's going to complete it. He's going to keep on working it until the day of Jesus Christ. Paul again wrote in 2 Corinthians 4, I don't know how Paul could say these words, but he says, for our light affliction. Come on, Paul. You call what you've been through light affliction? If he calls what he went through light affliction, I'm not sure what I can call what I've been through. But he says, for our light affliction, which is but for a moment, worketh for us an eternal and exceeding weight of glory. This light affliction is working for us. Oftentimes we feel like, God, you're working against me. God, where are you? I can't find you anywhere. And I feel like you're not going anywhere with my life. God says, no. I'm actually going exactly where I want to go. I've got a plan. I've got a plan. And I'm going somewhere with it. Job came out like gold, but he had to go through the refining process. You might find yourself in the refining process today. I want to encourage you, number one, God knows where you are, and God is up to something good. Nothing happens to his children by accident. Nothing is out of his control. Oh, I just want to encourage you this morning. That just encourages me so much to know, but I have to exercise my faith, what God has said, and I exercise my faith in who God is. And that led then to Job's commitment. You see this in verse 11. My foot has held fast to his steps. I have kept his way. I've not turned aside. I've not departed from the commandment of his lips. I have treasured the words of his mouth more than my portion of food. See, Job had made a commitment to God, and he hadn't lost it. Even in the midst of his trial, he held on to his commitment. I find that the times for me to stay committed to God are more challenging when it's easy. Life's going good. Everything's kind of smooth. Got a little money in the bank. Kids are doing all right. Me and the wife are doing good. Normal stuff going on in life. But, for the most part, sometimes that's when my commitment starts to slide a little bit, when I'm comfortable. But that was not Job. You could read at the beginning of the book. That was not Job. Job was a very committed man to God. And it didn't change in the middle of his trial. Now, did Job do everything right? No. Did Job complain? Yes. Did Job ask a lot of questions? Yes. But he never let go of his commitment to God. I wonder how you're doing with your commitment. Whether life is good or life is challenging, if you are God's child, how are you doing with your commitment? You see, I found for me, one of the things that pulled me through some of the challenging times of my life was the fact that I was committed. And if I wavered in the easy times, it was really easy to waver in the hard times. Are you staying committed? Because this is where Job was. I'm staying committed. And this commitment brought an understanding. Job's understanding is found in verses 13 and 14. But he is unchangeable. And who can turn him back? What he desires, that he does. For he will complete what he appoints for me, and many such things are in his mind. What in the world is he talking about? He says God doesn't change. I told you a minute ago that God has a plan. What's God's plan? Well, man ruined everything by sin. God came up with a plan by which he would send his only begotten Son, Jesus, to come to the sin-cursed earth, to suffer, to die, to rise again, so that you and I could be restored in our relationship with God, so that we could have the penalty of sin removed from us, because we were born into it. But God's plan said, I want to save you, I want to redeem you. I'm going to guess that many of you, if not most of you in this room, have done that. You've come to the point where you recognize you couldn't save yourself. If you're here today and you haven't come to that conclusion, I want you to know God's invitation is still there. His plan for you is the same. He wants you to be restored to him. He wants to have a right relationship with you. And it all comes through his Son Jesus and what he did on a cross and an empty grave. Sometimes we want to stop there. That's not the end of God's plan. Because God's plan keeps going. Romans chapter 8, verse 29 says that he predestinated us. He planned out ahead of time that we would be conformed to the image of his Son. 2 Corinthians 3:18 tells us that we are being changed from glory to glory by the Spirit of the Lord into his image. God is up to something in our lives, and it's good. He wants you and he wants me to be just like Jesus. Can I just remind you today that he is not satisfied until that plan is finished? Philippians 1:6, I said it a moment ago, being confident of this very thing, that he which began the work, he will complete it. He will complete it someday. And God is not satisfied in the growth. He's happy that I'm growing, but he's not satisfied. He will not be satisfied until the plan's complete, until I am like his Son. And now, you know what that means? I'm going through the fire. Because sometimes the best way to change me is to put me in the fire. And so sometimes I go through trial and affliction, not because God doesn't care, but this is part of the plan. Sometimes I don't like the plan. And sometimes I tell God, I don't like your plan. You ever told God that? Job did. Psalmist did. The difference is this. Job, the psalmist, they lamented, but they always came back to this. God, I don't get it, but I'm going to trust you anyways. God, I don't get it, but I'm going to trust you anyways. Where are you today? Are you lost? Are you frustrated with God? Are you getting angry with God? I just want to take you back to the scriptures that tells you that God hasn't lost you. He's right there with you. He's got a plan. He's up to something good, and that something good looks like Jesus Christ in your life. And that leads us to Job's response. Once again, it sometimes doesn't make a lot of sense to us as we just read this. What was Job's response? Therefore, I'm terrified at his presence. When I consider, I am in dread of him. God has made my heart faint. The Almighty has terrified me. Yet I am not silenced because of the darkness, nor because of the thick darkness covers my face. You know what Job said? I'm afraid of God. Are you afraid of God? I think for me, sometimes I get really comfortable with God, and I forget this awesome dread of displeasing him. The fear of the Lord. It's repeated for us many, many times throughout Scripture. And I don't think this fear of the Lord means we're necessarily going to sit there and tremble in our boots. But that's what Isaiah did in chapter 6. Isaiah couldn't help himself when he entered God's throne room. He was terrified. He was speechless. But for us on a day-to-day basis, the fear of the Lord should be something that compels us. A holy dread of displeasing Him. The fear of the Lord, a holy dread of displeasing Him. I get a little comfortable with sin sometimes. I know, God, I'm a little proud. God, yeah, I kind of, no, I displeased you, God. I displeased you by the way I acted. And I really do believe that if I feared God, I had a holy dread of displeasing Him more, I would probably choose to sin less. The Bible is full of the references, particularly the book of Proverbs. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. The fear of the Lord is to hate evil. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the holy is understanding. In the fear of the Lord is strong confidence. The fear of the Lord is a fountain of life. The fear of the Lord tendeth to life. Let not thine heart envy sinners, but be thou in the fear of the Lord all the day long. I know that in a room this size, there's probably some of you that are not in a trial of any sort. Life is easy. I want to ask you this question, though. Do you fear God? Are you staying close to Him? Are you staying committed to Him? And I want to reach out to those of you who might be hurting today. You know, we come to church and we all look so good, and we get our Sunday clothes on, and we all look good, and we bring a smile, but underneath that, there could be a lot of hurting hearts here today. And I just want to encourage you, fear God. Remember His promises of His presence today. He has not abandoned you. He has not forsaken you. He knows the way that you take because He's with you. And when He has tried you, you will come forth as gold. Understand, God has a plan for you. Don't be frustrated. Respond by fearing God. You know, the choir is going to come and sing, and they're going to sing a song. Choir, you can come on up. They're going to close our service by singing a song that I think Job would have loved to have sung too. Because it's all about the fact that God is king. Job recognized God's presence as king, i.e., the one who's in charge, the one who is to be worshiped, the one who is to be obeyed. The choir is going to come, and they're going to sing a song that we sing on Friday nights. It's an excellent way to end our week of camp because it reminds us that God is going to reign as king. He reigns right now, and someday in His presence, He will reign as king.